The story of currency is one of humanity's most fascinating journeys, a tale that begins long before coins and bills. Reaching back into the earliest moments of civilization itself, long before the first minted coins, humans engaged in barter trade, exchanging goods and services directly. A farmer with surplus grain might trade with a potter for clay vessels, or a herder might trade a goat for a few sacks of wheat. This system worked on a small scale, but as societies grew and trade became more complex, the limitations of barter became clear. Barter required a double coincidence of wants, meaning each party had to want exactly what the other offered. This inefficiency set the stage for the birth of money. The first major evolution in currency came in the form of commodity money, items that had intrinsic value. Different cultures adopted what they found valuable or practical. In ancient Mesopotamia, barley and silver served as standard mediums of exchange. In parts of Africa, salt and cowrie shells became currency, while in China, copper tools and knives once circulated as money. These commodities had real use, but their physical bulk and inconsistency created problems for larger economies. The next evolutionary step, therefore, was to find something more durable, portable, and universally accepted. Around 600 BCE in the Kingdom of Lydia, modern-day Turkey, the first true metal coins appeared. These coins were made of electrum, a naturally occurring alloy of gold and silver, and were stamped with official marks to guarantee authenticity and value. This innovation revolutionized trade. Coins were durable, divisible, and easily recognized, which allowed economies to grow beyond simple barter or regional trade. From Lydia, the concept spread rapidly through Greece, Persia, and Rome, eventually influencing the entire ancient world. The Roman Empire perfected coinage systems, standardizing weights and values to ensure stability across its vast territories. Roman coins, such as the denarius, became trusted symbols of economic power and state authority. However, the empire also showed the dangers of debasement. When emperors reduced the precious metal content in coins to mint more money, inflation soared. This early example of monetary manipulation taught a lesson still relevant today. The trustworthiness of money is as important as the material it's made from. After the fall of Rome, Europe entered a period of economic fragmentation. Coinage persisted, but regional currencies and local barter systems often dominated. Meanwhile, in China, a remarkable innovation occurred during the Tang and Song dynasties, the introduction of paper money. Merchants and governments began issuing promissory notes backed by deposits of gold or goods. By the 11th century, China's Song dynasty had established the first government-backed paper currency, centuries before Europe adopted it. This was a monumental shift. Money was no longer necessarily tied to metal or physical commodities. When Marco Polo visited China in the 13th century, he marveled at this paper system and brought tales of it back to Europe. Still, it took Europe hundreds of years to adopt the concept. By the Renaissance, as banking developed in places like Venice and Florence, banknotes and bills of exchange began circulating. These were early forms of credit, written promises to pay that could be traded as money. This innovation expanded the reach of trade and commerce across continents. In the 17th and 18th centuries, as global empires and trade networks grew, modern financial institutions emerged. The Bank of England, established in 1694, began issuing standardized banknotes backed by gold reserves. The gold standard era soon followed, where currencies were directly linked to a fixed amount of gold. This provided a sense of stability and trust in money's value, allowing international trade to flourish. However, it also limited governments' flexibility, as the supply of money could not easily expand without gold reserves. The Industrial Revolution accelerated economic growth, and with it, the evolution of currency systems. Governments began centralizing control over money, leading to the rise of central banks. Paper currency became dominant, and coins were relegated to smaller denominations. The idea of fiat money, currency that has value because the government declares it so, not because it's backed by a physical commodity, began to take hold. Fiat money relied entirely on trust in the issuing authority. By the 20th century, the world's economies had fully embraced fiat systems. In 1971, US President Richard Nixon officially ended the gold standard, detaching the US dollar from gold and setting a precedent for other nations. From that moment, modern money became a symbolic representation of value, backed not by metal, but by confidence, credit, and government regulation. The ease of printing and controlling fiat currency gave governments new economic tools, but also new risks, such as inflation, debt crises, and currency manipulation. At the same time, technology began transforming the way people used money. Credit cards, introduced in the 1950s, allowed consumers to spend without carrying physical cash. By the late 20th century, digital banking emerged, paving the way for an entirely new phase in the evolution of currency. The line between physical and digital money blurred as people used debit cards, online transfers, and later mobile payment systems. The 21st century brought a revolution with the birth of cryptocurrency. In 2009, an anonymous creator known as Satoshi Nakamoto introduced Bitcoin, the first decentralized digital currency. Unlike traditional money, Bitcoin operated on blockchain technology, public digital ledger that recorded all transactions transparently and securely. This marked a radical departure from government-controlled fiat money. It was borderless, decentralized, and resistant to inflationary manipulation. Cryptocurrencies inspired countless new digital assets and reshaped how people thought about money. However, they also raised new concerns: volatility, regulation, and environmental impact from energy-intensive mining. While some saw them as the future of finance, others viewed them as speculative or unstable. Still, the concept of digital currency proved too powerful to ignore, pushing even governments to explore similar technologies. By the 2020s, several countries began experimenting with central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, government-backed digital versions of their national currencies. Unlike cryptocurrencies, these were fully regulated, aiming to combine the efficiency of digital transactions with the stability of fiat systems. China, for instance, advanced rapidly with its digital yuan, while nations like the US and the UK explored their own versions. The evolution of money continues to accelerate. Today, cashless societies are becoming more common. Many people rarely handle paper bills, using smartphones and digital wallets instead. Apps like PayPal, Venmo, and Apple Pay have turned money into pure information, something that exists as data rather than as metal or paper. In many cities, you can travel, shop, or pay bills entirely without ever touching physical cash. This leads to a crucial question: will currency exist forever? The answer depends on what we mean by currency. If we define it as a medium of exchange, a store of value, and a unit of account, then some form of currency will always exist, though not necessarily in its current form. Human societies need systems to trade, value, and measure resources, and money serves that fundamental purpose. However, the form of currency will continue to evolve. It might become entirely digital, perhaps powered by blockchain or quantum-secure systems. Governments may issue programmable money that automatically enforces taxes or contracts. In such a future, currency might feel more like software than paper. Even so, it would still perform the same ancient role, facilitating trust and exchange among humans. There are also scenarios where the concept of currency could dissolve. Technology and society reach a post-scarcity stage, where resources and production are so abundant that goods are nearly free. Money as we know it might lose relevance. Some futurists envision systems based on reputation, contribution, or energy credits, replacing traditional currency altogether. But such a world remains speculative, far beyond current economic reality. In essence, the history of currency is a reflection of human progress, from trading grain in dusty markets to conducting billion-dollar transactions with a tap of a screen. Money has evolved with every leap in technology, society, and governance, adapting to each new age. Whether it is a coin, paper note, or digital code, it continues to represent trust, the invisible agreement that keeps economies alive. So, will currency exist forever? Perhaps not in its present form, but as long as humans trade, build, and dream of something greater, there will always be something that represents value, something that bridges the gap between effort and reward.